I welcome you all to this meeting of Cardinia Shire Council and declare the meeting open. The Mayor is unavailable for tonight's meeting. As Deputy Mayor, I will assume the role of Chair for tonight's meeting. This meeting will be conducted in accordance with Council's governance rules. It is important to remember members of the public present in the gallery respect the setting and do not disrupt the meeting, particularly during debate and discussion by councillors on items on the agenda. Cardinia Shire Council is deeply saddened by the tragic events in Bondi. On behalf of my fellow councillors and council staff, we extend our heartfelt sympathy to everyone who has been impacted by this heartbreaking incident, particularly the Jewish community. We recognise that this is an incredibly difficult time for many, and our thoughts are with those directly impacted, especially those with loved ones in the affected area. We acknowledge the tremendous response of emergency services and we thank them for their continued efforts under difficult circumstances. Witnessing such tragic events as these can fill us with a sense of profound shock, sorrow and disbelief. It is important to remember that we are not alone in feeling this way. Please look after yourselves and one another and seek support if needed. Cardinia Shire Council is proud of its multicultural and multi-faith communities. In fact, our cultural and faith diversity is one of our greatest strengths. We're committed to building a stronger and more connected community in which everyone feels welcome, safe, accepted and respected. Cardinia Shire Council condemns violence in any form, and we will continue to lead with purpose to foster an inclusive and harmonious Shire. Flags at the Cardinia Shire Council Civic Centre are being flown at half-mast as a mark of respect. We will now commence the meeting with a reflection. I would ask those gathered to join us now for a few moments of silence as we reflect on our roles in this chamber. Please use this opportunity for reflection, prayer or thought to focus on our shared intention to work respectfully together for the well-being of our whole community. The Cardinia Shire Council respectfully acknowledges that we are on the traditional land of the Bunurong and Wurundjeri people and pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. We have two apologies for tonight. James Collins, Chief Executive Officer, and Councillor Brett Owen. We also have a request from Councillor Owen for a leave of absence. That Council 1, grant a leave of absence to Councillor Owen due to work commitments. 2, notes that he will resume his duties as soon as practical and will notify all councillors and the CEO in writing when he is available to return. 3, that the leave of absence be reviewed at the February 2026 council meeting if required. And 4, council notes Councillor Owen will not be receiving the mayoral and council allowance during this period. Could I have a mover for this item? Councillor Pomeroy.
Happy to move this item as noted.
Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Thompson. Ask the mover if they wish to speak.
No, thank you.
The seconder wish to speak?
Nothing further to add. Thank you, Deputy.
Now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare this is carried. We move to the adoption and confirmation of minutes. That council confirm the minutes of the following meetings. 1, council meeting the 17th of November 2005. 2, the statutory council meeting of council meeting 17th of November 2005. 2, the statutory council meeting of the 24th of November 2005. And 3, the town planning committee meeting the 1st of December 2005. Could I have a mover? Councillor Kwasi?
Thank you. Just confirming those were 2025, but happy to move.
Yeah, they're all 2025. What did I say?
2005.
Oh, right, sorry.
We're
20-year
totally fine.
time warp.
I move so. Thanks, Deputy.
A seconder? Councillor Thompson. Mover wish to speak?
Thank you.
Seconder? No. Now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that carried. 5, declarations of interest. Are there any, councillors, do we have any declarations of interest for tonight's meeting? I see none. That be recorded. Thank you. Community questions, item 6. We have received 4 sets of community questions tonight. In accordance with clause 3.52.2 of the governance rules, any commentary or preamble submitted with the community questions has been removed and will not be read aloud. If the questioner is not present tonight, their questions will be answered in the minutes. The first question is from David Edwards. This question has been ruled out in accordance with clause 3.51 of the governance rules. The second set of questions is from Anthony Vollett. Is Anthony here this evening? No, we'll put those in the minutes. Tracy Lee submitted 1 question. Is Tracy Lee here? Hello, Tracy. This will be read and answered by the General Manager of Community and Planning Services.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you for your question, Tracy. Your question relates to COVID-19 vaccinations, safely contaminations. The question reads, now that you have publicly petitioned to increase vaccinations, will you now support the investigation into the contamination and safety concerns of the COVID-19 vaccinations regarding the paperwork you were served? In response, Council does not have any involvement in the administration or decision-making process related to the COVID-19 vaccine. The vaccine program is led by the federal government. Thank you for your question.
The next set of questions are from Stephanie Davies. Is she here? No. These questions will be, answers will be placed in the minutes. Now move to ordinary business. Agenda item 7.2.1, appointment of committees. That council appoints council representatives to the following council and external committees as shown on the screen. Do I have a mover? Councillor Pomeroy.
I'd like to move the report as noted.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kwasi. Do you wish to speak to the item?
Yeah, I think this is a great opportunity to showcase just the breadth of work that councillors and groups that we sit on throughout the year. And I've been fortunate over the past year to sit on a number as Deputy Mayor. So you will note on the list that there's a lot there that have Councillor Owen and Councillor Roberts, and they're the ones generally that have the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor. And there's a wide breadth of groups, so Improve Safety Action Team, Mental Wellbeing Action Team, Reduce Family Violence, Financial Wellbeing and Resilience, as well as some external committees, the Cardinia Foundation, Miley, and a whole host of organisations. And I suppose what we find is the reason these are so important is combined advocacy helps us advocate to not only the state and the federal governments on particular items, it also helps us to understand the lived experience of the other people on these committees, which is vital in the work we do. So I commend each councillor for the time and commitment that they have on these boards, but also to each of the community members that are also serving their time on these boards. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pomeroy. Councillor Thompson, do you wish to speak as seconder? Oh, Kowaczyk, sorry, seconder. No. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to this item? No. Now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Declare that as carried. Agenda item 7.2.2, appointment of community asset committees for recreation reserves. That council endorse the appointment of the persons listed in the agenda to the respective recreation reserve community asset committees appointed by Cardinia Shire Council in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020. And thank committee, point 2, thank asset committee members for their valuable contribution to the management of community recreation reserves. Do I have a mover for this item? Councillor Pomeroy.
I'd like to move an alternative for this item.
Would you like to read
Sure.
your alternative, please?
That council endorses the appointment of the following persons to their respective recreation community asset committees, including Pound Road Reserve, which held their AGM on Wednesday and therefore weren't in the report.
Do I have a seconder for Councillor Kowaczyk? Sorry, I've done something.
Deputy Mayor.
Sorry.
No.
Yeah.
Just confirming that the proposed alternate is the officer recommendation and then that point in addition to, not that point. Can we just confirm that with the mover, please? Because it's not clear on the screen.
Yes. So the point is 1 and 2 and add in the Pound Road Reserve Recreation Reserve Committee.
I'm happy to second that.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Kowaczyk. Councillor Pomeroy, do you wish to speak to the alternate?
Sure. This is an important one, once again, just to show the breadth of volunteers across each of our community asset committees. And I'd like to not only thank each person that put their hand up this year, but for any outgoing as well. And the report does recognise a number of people across that. So there's 13 recreation reserves across Cardinia Shire, managed by community asset committees, and the power of work goes into this, and even dealing with council can be quite challenging at times. And we're working with each of these groups to really make sure our communities have the facilities that they can use and really thrive at. So just a massive thanks to each of those people, and also the Pound Road Reserve committee members that aren't listed in the report. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Pomeroy. Councillor Kowaczyk, do you wish to speak
Yeah.
for the item?
I do. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Pomeroy, for moving this. I'll be very brief, just also to give my thanks to these members listed here, but probably more broadly, just to comment on volunteerism and the role that these people play in propping up and supporting these committees. I'm sure many people in our community are members of sporting clubs or pony clubs or whatever, things that use these reserves or similar reserves. But it's interesting, the people who often serve on the reserve committees themselves quite often don't get a lot of credit because they are the powerhouse behind to make sure that everything is ready to go for game day or show day or whatever it is you are using that particular reserve for. So just a brief comment, Deputy Mayor, to shout out the unsung heroes who keep these reserves running well. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers to this item? Councillor Payton.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thanks for two other speakers. I just wanted to note the Cardinia Recreation Reserve. Want to read out the returning board: President Chris Beard, Vice President Bill Orr, Secretary Liz Bergmeyer, Treasurer John Adlam, committee members David Young, Luke Turner, Riley Watson, Brady Welsh. And I just wanted a quick comment because, you know, probably a lot of us haven't even been to Cardinia Rec Reserve. And I just want to say that this committee does a stellar job at looking after the field, and it could become a show ground or a showcase ground for cricket in the southeast region because of the amount of work and commitment that they give. There was one comment that, you know, they'd love to see a Lord's-style afternoon tea given at the club rooms, and all they need is the white picket fence around the outside and it would be ace. But, you know, Cardinia Rec Reserve, or the township of Cardinia, has no public toilets at all. The disability bathroom doesn't work, and there have been several issues with the Avenue of Honour trees, where many of the contractor planted trees have died and need rework. So this committee works a lot with council to try and improve these matters, and I think they find it a little bit difficult because it used to be an incorporated association, and since they've come under council's banner, they feel like they're doing twice the work sometimes. So I think it's important for us as a council group to try and see in the volunteer strategy that's coming up later next year how we can sort of remove some of these barriers and return these people to feeling like the work they put in is really meaningful, rather than just chasing a contractor or councillor's tail. Just very quickly, sorry, wanted to shout out to the Lang Lang Rec Reserve as well. Welcome to Joe Beadle on that committee, and it's chaired by Sam Lockridge. Sam is one of Cardinia's local heroes, but he doesn't live in the Shire and has never been eligible for formal acknowledgement. So I just wanted to acknowledge him here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pomeroy. Are there any other speakers to this item? I see none. We'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Oh, sum up, sorry. Councillor Pomeroy, would you like to sum up?
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Chris Strong and Howard Winter as well from the Rail Reserve for their 10 years of dedicated service. And important to note that council is supporting each of these groups, helping upskill volunteers, providing leadership courses. So it really is working hand in hand. Thanks to the groups that invited me to your AGMs. It's definitely a great opportunity to see what has been achieved throughout the last 12 months. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pomeroy. I'll now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? Declare that carried. Next item, agenda item 7.2.3, S6A, Instrument of Delegation, Council to members of council staff. That council 1, adopts the proposed S6A Instrument of Delegation to members of council staff under the Planning and Environment Act 1987 and as amended by the Consumer and Planning Legislation Amendment Housing Statement Reform Act 2025. 2, authorises the Chief Executive Officer to execute the instrument of delegation. Do I have a mover? Councillor Thompson.
I move the officer's recommendation as noted. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ross. Councillor Thompson, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Deputy. Yeah, I'll be brief on this one. Thank you very much. So this instrument of delegation of council to members to council staff is in line with the Victorian Government's updated planning policy and schemes and the amendments that are coming through. It's in the executive summary that it's set out to, the state government's got a target of 800,000 houses or homes within the next decade. So within that, we've seen over the past town planning committee meeting and other general council meetings, changes coming through from the state level. And I think the sentence that sums that up the best is also in the executive summary, that updated government's arrangements that enable faster and more efficient planning decisions. Whilst positive in probably its intent, it does take away some of those planning powers and decisions that we have been quite vocal about at council level and do have concerns about being a growth Shire council. But relating back to this actual motion, I'm in support of the recommendation of the instrument of delegation to members of council staff, and also that the Chief Executive Officer can execute the instrument of delegation as noted in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Move to your seconder, Councillor Ross.
I reserve my right to speak. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. I'll go back to Councillor Thompson. Anything? Or any other councillors wishing to speak to this item? Councillor Ross.
Nothing further. Thank you, Deputy
Councillor
Mayor.
Thompson.
Nothing further. Thank you, Deputy.
We'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I declare it carried. Agenda item 7.3.1, Cardinia Shire Council's Advocacy Agenda 2025 to 29. That council adopts the item as written in the agenda. I ask for a mover for this item. Councillor Thompson.
Move the officer's report as noted. Thank you.
Ask for a seconder. Councillor Potter. Councillor.
I'm happy to move. I'll second it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Councillor Thompson, do you wish to speak to the item?
Thank you, Deputy. This is a really important piece of work within our Shire with the upcoming state election due next year. So the recommendation, as noted out through points 1 to 6, I am in full support of. A few things I wish to highlight before I open the floor to my fellow colleagues is the probably just the priorities in point 1 listed through A to E. So we have the Lang Lang truck drop bypass, which is obviously a crucial bit of advocacy work and a crucial project that we need delivered within our Shire for the residents of Lang Lang, with the sand mines and the decades worth of work to go through the sand quarries through Lang Lang itself. Cardinia Life is quite is number one in terms of probably the recreation space within our Shire. It's worth noting that the advocacy pitch that we've put towards the state government, as noted, is in 1B, it's the regional basketball and gymnastics stadium redevelopment. People will notice that the aquatic element would be missing from that, and that's through advice, through liaising with different government personnel, that to receive funding and to receive the expansion and upgrades that Cardinia Life needs, that the aquatic component would most likely need to be a separate funding and advocacy item, as the priority from state government, at least with the information that we've received, would be much more towards the basketball and gymnastics component and the redevelopment. So yes, it's $60 million, 20 million each from state, federal and local level. A lot of money, and I'm sure other people will speak to this item or people will be concerned about that money, but I'd be really interested to know that if we were fortunate enough to be, I suppose, in that position, that I would be really keen on developing the scope of that to make sure that we could maximise that funding that we were to receive, but also the money that our ratepayers would be putting towards Cardinia Life as kind of the flagship recreational facility within the Shire. A few other things that are super important are the strategic road sealing package. Most people will remember the sealing the hills and the reduced funding that we got from that. So we see that as a massive priority, as the roads aren't up to scratch within our Shire, as well as public transport package and the parks and open space packages as other advocacy pitches. But I'll open the floor. Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I now go to your seconder, Councillor Potter.
Thank you. Great. Casey, thank you very much. You shared a lot that I was going to say. But basically, this is our wish list, our Christmas list, if you like. It's really important, as Casey or Councillor Thompson said, that because the state election is coming up, but also it's important, as is outlined by the officers in the report, that the next federal budget submission is actually due in January 26. So it's really a timely agenda item at the moment. We must get this through. So I'm really pleased to see a lot of things that I'm really been advocating for. One of them, officer residents would see and be cheering for, that we will be advocating for the Officer Town Centre activation package. the Victorian Government divestment of surplus land in Officer Town Centre to enable development alongside upgrades to Officer Train Station and construction of the much needed Officer Bypass Arterial, which I've been talking about till people are sick of me. And then there is also the Princess Highway safety and connectivity upgrades call to action I'd like to highlight. The state and federal funding contributions to the estimated 25 million for a business case to upgrade Nong and Bunyip intersections and signalise Tumac Valley Road intersection, and also the McMullen Road intersection, which officer residents would know very, very well. So I'll leave it to my colleagues to make further comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to this item? Councillor Pomeroy, firstly.
Thank you. I think this one's important to note that obviously 9 councillors, 500 staff, wherever we're at, there's a lot of what we'll call wish lists or advocacy priorities that we could have in here. And one I'm disappointed to see drop out of the tier 1, but thankful it's still in tier 2, is the Princess Highway safety upgrades. There is some reasons around this, so I suppose it will continue with advocacy. I just want the community to be aware it hasn't dropped off our agenda. We continue to fight for this, but I suppose our focus in the next little part will be through the South Eastern Australian Transport Strategy, of which I've been appointed a member tonight. The federal government made it very clear we need the state to have buy-in as to this to be a priority. Before the feds will even look at it. So we need to position this and we will continue to advocate in this space. So I just want to reassure everyone that hasn't dropped just because other things have progressed forward.
Thank you, Councillor Pomeroy. Are there any other speakers to this item? Councillor Payton, would you?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, speakers so far. I won't be supporting this motion tonight. As a councillor, I take seriously our responsibility to deliver the best value for our ratepayers' contributions, and as someone who's sat on the Audit and Risk Committee for the past year, I have to say I don't believe there's enough substance in the advocacy framework for us to take it forward or public just yet. The council plan we've just adopted hasn't been properly filtered through the lens of our risk profile, and I think that's critical. We need to understand the impact of every single ask in this advocacy plan, not just in isolation, but how it flows through our strategic, operational and financial risk frameworks. If any of these projects get full or even partial funding, we need to know what that means for us down the track. Our Chief Financial Officer, Alison Southwell, together with Acting CEO Wayne Mack and the finance team, do an extraordinary job to manage this council's finances. But they don't have magical powers and there are no money trees, not even in state and federal government. All the money ultimately comes from the wallets of our struggling ratepayers and the country's taxpayers. The reality is we're operating in a very different environment now than we were 5 or 10 years ago. Things have changed and so must we. We can't keep putting forward a broad menu of projects hoping a couple might stick. We need a much deeper understanding of our budget and its limits. We need to be far more selective and strategic so that we advocate for items that we actually delivers council plan objectives and meet the expectations of our community Shire-wide, optimising return on investment. To be honest, apart from headline knowledge of some of these items, I feel poorly prepared to make this decision tonight, and I can't support it mainly for that reason. The risk of getting this wrong is far greater than the risk of delaying it until February. So if the motion fails, I'll foreshadow an alternate motion that we reconvene this item in February, at the February meeting, after some extra workshopping prior to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payton. Do I have any other councillors to speak to this item? Councillor Nicol?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, I would also speak against the motion and I agree with Councillor Payton on many of the points which have been raised. I would just like, in speaking against the motion, I would talk to emphasise point 1 in particular and the top tier advocacy items which have made the list, 1A, B, C, D and E. And as we look at that list, certainly 1A, the truck bypass in Lang Lang, the road sealing package, which residents will have to co-fund, I would like to point out to the council. Residents co-fund it themselves. 1D, the public transport, certainly have a broad community benefit and improve the long-term financial and budget position of the Shire. I'm also disappointed and echo Councillor Pomeroy's point regarding the fact that the Princess Highway safety measures didn't quite make that top tier list. And for me, that's a disappointment as well, because again, it's around community safety and well-being of the Shire. But what has made the list is quite interesting when we look at 1E and we look at 1B, the Cardinia Life upgrade and the Parks and Open Space package, all concentrated in a tiny section of the Shire and really just assisting hobbies, people's sport hobbies. And when you compare that with public safety, well-being, improvement of the budget position long-term, and even just getting access to your home in a car so that you can drive up your home street, I see it as far less important. But then we look at the financial impact a little bit further down on page 28 of the officer's report. If we happen to land a couple of those advocacy items, let's just say the Cardinia Life One lands, we're talking $20 million. $20 million in our current financial circumstances. As Councillor Payton was pointing out, we certainly are carrying risk in our organisation, and we needed to have had a more fuller risk briefing in terms of impact to the Shire's future and forward budgets based on that. If we land the parks and open space packages as well for just a concentrated centralised part of the Shire, again, we're talking almost 10 million more impact that Cardinia has to find the money for. And so I can't support those items. And so that's the rationale for my not supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Nicol. Do I have any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Look, this is a very difficult time that councils have been put into with sustainability. When I have a look at this advocacy kit, there's no crystal ball that can tell us numbers other than projections that we put out there on the other end, what we might have to pay. Some of the projects that we've got here, it's so open-ended with such a huge amount of numbers that are connected to what we might have to spend. It was mentioned that it's seen as a Christmas wish list that we would like to think that we could get. Unfortunately, I'm someone who's a realist where I always look at how much is it going to cost me at the end of the day, how much have I got to spend, like with my own budget. And one of the questions that keeps coming to hand when I have a look at this is, we'd like to know how much will we have to pay, but unfortunately on the other end, we don't know how much they're going to put in, so we don't know how much we might have to put in. Then secondly, if we don't know that and we find that it's out of our budget range, are we prepared to hand it back? What sort of reputational damage it might happen if we do hand it back, if we don't accept it? While I agree that a wish list is fantastic, that we have something to aim towards what we'd like to have, I think until some of these questions can be answered, like 1, who pays? 2, how much? And 3, if we do get the money given to us and we have to hand it back, are we prepared to go through that damage? I would support, if this gets defeated, an alternate motion, because I think we've sort of just jumped ahead of time here without having the answers to those questions, which can come in the new year, and defer this item. you know, I know that on council we're looking to cut $6 million out of our ongoing budget this year, which is an extremely hard job to do out of expenditure. Commitment to this item early might make that doing that item by reducing the expenditure just a waste of time, because how can we ask our officers and everything to prune everything back, and then we might go out and spend another $10 million bang without knowing that we have to pay it. So anyway, until we get some information about who pays how much and whether or not we hand it back, I won't be supporting it at this stage. I do like some of the items in here, but I don't know how much they're going to cost me, so I wouldn't go and buy them. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Kwasik?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm going to support this item tonight, and hopefully to allay some fears of my colleagues that they've expressed, which it's hard, isn't it? Because they're genuine concerns, and so I don't want to dismiss them out of hand, because they're right. A lot of these are targeted to specific areas, and I think we need to be conscious of the fact that our advocacy plan was developed in full transparency with councillors, but also fully understanding the political nature of the seats which occupy Cardinia Shire, in which there's 5 state seats and 2 are marginal and the rest aren't. And unfortunately, going into a state election, we need to be realistic and we need to be targeted in what we go for. So, of course, we hope through the advocacy agenda that we're touching on many, many parts of the Shire. But this is not all we're focused on. Of course, council has its own budget in which we deal with the entire Shire, and I think we do it in a more equal way than perhaps the council gets credit for, particularly given the disparity of rate collection. I think this council has a difficult job, more difficult than any other municipality, I would say, in terms of growth and rural and how that spread is, and I think we do an okay job of that. We can do better, but we do an okay job of that. In terms of the costing, it's unlikely we're going to get all of these. So I think we can be pretty clear about that. But I do want to express a little bit of positivity for Cardinia Life, because I think we're closer than we have perhaps ever been at potentially getting some extra funding for what we need for this facility. So I think this facility opened in 2006, nearly 20 years ago, and since then our population has more than doubled. Okay, and Cardinia Life has been crying out for an expansion, has been crying out for a re-roof, and so many in our community will understand that. And I think it's pretty clear. You know, it says in the recommendation here, $60 million equal 3-way funding. So it looks like we're aiming for 2020. I would imagine that if a federal or state government came with less than that, and it was close, it would be a conversation for the council. Between 15 and 20, that's a conversation, and probably anything less than that, I'm pretty confident this council would reject that out of hand. Obviously, that's a decision for a future council, but I think we're being honest with other levels of government and honest with our community in how we've split that up in showing what we are hopeful for. So I appreciate, the concerns that my fellow colleagues have raised. And of course, we can't allay all of those fears, but I hope there's an understanding there and an acceptance of the fact that we can't ask for everything. We won't get everything, but we're hoping by targeting these specific things that we can achieve some of our goals in the lead up to the next election. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kwasik. We've all spoken on this item. There's only myself remaining. I will be supporting this item. As Councillor Kwasik said, we're heading for a state election with marginal seats where we have them in a tight budget framework for the state. It's very likely that if we're going to give promise to anything in an election year, it will be in those marginal seats. We are a growth council. There's times when we need to invest for the future of our community, and I feel that, much like what Councillor Kwasik said, we have the opportunity to have those discussions when promises may be coming forth with the relevant political parties or or government departments. So I particularly personally champion the public transport package. We were not promised a bus review for Cardinia Shire 4 years ago. It works if you don't get one at an election, promised an election, you don't get one for another 4 years. So we don't get one this year. It's 8 years we've been asking, and we haven't had any significant, just a few extensions on the initial set of bus routes that were established the year I moved to Pakenham, 2006. It's critical for the way that we move and the next generation too. I saw a bus stop today and it was young people that got off that bus. They need to be able to get around. They need to be able to get to school. They need to be able to get to TAFE, which we don't have here. So it's one that I particularly champion, and we will need to sit down as a team and really hone in as the state election approaches on what our top 3 things are. That's what other mayors and deputy mayors that I met a fortnight ago are doing. They're nailing down to those things that they really, really want to push for, and that's what we're going to have to do. So I'll be supporting this item and put it to the vote. I pass back to Councillor Casey Thompson to wrap up.
Thank you, Deputy, and thank you for everyone's open and honest thoughts around the table about this issue. It really is one of those tricky ones because being the nature of basically what we are willing to spend money on, how much money we're willing to spend is something that all councils will be, I'm sure, having similar conversations. I would like to just echo some thoughts around the current political climate, and that most likely being Pakenham being the most marginal seat and probably the most tightly contested, that it's probably the reason why a lot of these items seem like they are more urban focused. I have no doubt that if this was something much more in the hills or one of the out towards more of the rural township, the railway townships, that those advocacy items and agendas would be higher up as a tier 1 item, and I'm sure would be fully supported. But the nature of it says that Pakenham's where it's going to be. The number one thing probably within this area is probably the Cardinia Life one, which seems to be the most hotly contested item on this list. It is $20 million, but it is phased over 5 years. We do have a say in the scope of things. It is worth pointing out that the federal submission for advocacy items is due in January, so a delay of this advocacy agenda does put that at risk. If it is going to cost us $60 million to get a new recreational facility, yes, I appreciate that on a map it is within a very, very small subsection of the Cardinia Shire, but what it services, what it does for people, respectfully, I think it's a bit more than sport hobbies and things like that for the nature of the urban townships that are going up around here through whether you want to go down the whole state government agenda of housing and things like that. We have small blocks of land. Yes, there is green space around. Yes, we have trails and walking paths, but sometimes people need a little bit more than that. And I think a facility like Cardinia Life and what that offers people for a social and, yes, for a lot of people a hobby, but also their only source of fitness or their way to get out of their house or things like that, that it is a very, very important facility within our Shire. So if it's going to cost us $60 million and we can get 40 of that covered from other government agencies, yes, it might sting us in the short term, but I still feel it is a super important thing that we need to go for. There's no guarantee that we get any of this. One party might promise us money, the other party might not, but we need to be in it to win it. And as for the other items there are a few things that are call to actions. It's in table 1 of the report. So it's not all wanting money for all these projects. We're looking for co-investment. We're looking for other levels of government to fully fund things. So thank you for everyone for their thoughts and their comments. Thank you for an open and honest discussion. It'll go to the vote and we'll see where the cookie crumbles. But yeah, super important document that I think we need to put through. Thank you.
Thank you to Councillor Thompson. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you. Agenda item 7.3.2, revised O'Neill Road Recreation Reserve Master Plan. That council notes the findings of the revised O'Neill Road Recreation Reserve Master Plan Community Engagement Report. 2, endorses the final revised O'Neill Road Recreation Reserve Master Plan and thanks the community for their contribution. Do I have a mover for this item? Councillor Potter.
I'd like to move the item. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ross. Councillor Potter, would you like to speak?
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Deputy. O'Neill Road Recreation Reserve is a feature in Beaconsfield, but it's estimated to be utilised by around 7,000 plus residents in both Officer and Beaky and further afield too. So as a growth area, that number is sure to grow. So we have to be ready. We as a council obviously approved the master plan to go to community consultation, and now following a 2-stage consultation with the user groups, residents, sporting bodies and council staff, the revised master plan has been finalised, and the key changes are additional seating and picnic tables and also active recreation options like pickleball or bocce courts. The estimated cost for full delivery is over 5.19 million, but works will align with the asset renewal schedules and no fixed timeline is set. So that takes the pressure off, and projects will be considered in Council's capital works program and annual budget process. Also, this report highlights that the reserve has development contribution plan funding that is linked to the adjacent Gisborne Road development too. So that also takes a bit of the pressure off. It's also worth mentioning the reserve is also important environmentally to the area, as Melbourne Water informs us that it's important for drainage and flood protection. Also, it supports our local biodiversity. The oval is the main feature, but Indigenous plantings along the boundaries create a bushland feel, and Council has added new trees along O'Neill Road and near the picnic shelter in recent years too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. I'll move to your seconder, Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Look, this is an interesting subject when it comes to master plans. If we don't develop a master plan, we don't get money for it. We can't even put it out there to try and get money for it because we don't have a plan around that space. On the other hand, when we do a master plan, it gives the community an idea in their head that we're going to pay the $5.1 million, and it puts pressure on council. When are you going to build it? Because now we've seen what you've got in the master plan. So it's a really, really awkward situation. If you don't do the master plan, you don't get money. And on the other hand, if you put it out there, exactly as I said, people are going to start asking, when are you going to build it? When are you going to build it? So generally master plans cost in the vicinity, it used to cost about $50,000 or $60,000 to do a master plan, which is a good investment in the state of you might get some money back because you can apply for money. Anyway, this is one of the areas where a master plan hadn't been updated and done. It does need to be done. It's an area that's existed for a long time and a lot of people use it, and it's got a lot of population around it. So I think we have to do the master plan. Unfortunately, unless we get money, $5.192 million is a huge amount of money for a reserve like that. So that comes again to how would we pay for it unless someone paid the whole lot for it, really. Anyway, thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Are there any other speakers to this item? Councillor Payton.
Thank you. Look, the challenge with this $5 million plus master plan really, and it's already been said, is that it lacks a defined budget, lacks a timeline for implementation, and it lacks an advocacy strategy for any time within the next 5 to 10 years. We're not going to see it in our term. I just don't understand. It's too late now because we've put the time into already reviewing it, but I don't understand why, when our staff resources are stretched so thinly, that we're putting time into updating a master plan. It wasn't creating one, it was updating it, that will need to be revised when it comes to the fore for funding, down the track. By the time this sees the light of day, if ever, the socio-economic profile of Beaconsfield and surrounds will have changed quite considerably, and we'll be back to the drawing board. So as far as I'm concerned, it's wasted money. I also want to mention that, we have a $500 million plus productivity of our agricultural food bowl in this Shire. And even if we invested just 1% of that back, we would see it double in a very short period of time. There's a lot of talk in this chamber about feeding money into rec reserves and hobbies and things like that. We're about to lose our food security is really at risk. Our farmers are in crisis. The whole agricultural industry around us is in landslide.
Councillor Payton, can you
and
draw
it's
back
not
to the
working.
item? Thanks.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So just to tie it back to this, we are wasting money on this project and not putting the focus where it really will bring us dividends. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payton. Do I have any other speakers to this item? Councillor Kwasi.
Thanks, Deputy. Just very briefly, happy to support this, but Councillor Ross captured it well in terms of the challenge with master plans, and Councillor Payton highlighted it correctly too. There's no budget associated with this. So it's a difficult thing for councils to do, is to adopt a master plan, but also then, without acquiescing to the pressure from the community to deliver it. So I guess I probably just want to put out there to our Beaconsfield community, particularly the community who live in the immediate vicinity of the O'Neill Road Rec Reserve, is that yes, it's coming, but it's probably not coming anytime soon. In terms of the DCPs that we've got, I don't have it in front of me, but I'm sure that council has to pay to top up the rest. So yeah, it's one of those very challenging things about living in a growth area. A lot of things look good on plans, but actually delivering them can be incredibly difficult. But I am pleased to see soccer fields come into this space and note that change there. Beaconsfield has a couple of different footy grounds, and previously, this has been an overflow footy ground too. But to see this become 2 soccer fields, pitches in the future, I think is a real positive. Thanks, Deputy.
Thank you, Councillor Kwasi. Any other speakers to this item? Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, we have to have master plans if we're going to go ahead in a planned way with establishing a vision for a piece of open space. But I would also like to point out that the financial implications of the master plan at $5.19 million and some discipline inserted into this master plan around highlighting that will be aligned with asset removals. But further to that, the section of the officer's report on page 31, which actually points to the availability of the development infrastructure levy and the community infrastructure levy to be contributing to these costs of implementation of the master plan. We ought to know in the master plan just how much that levy will be, both of those levies will be, and I would put to the chamber that they should be 100%. As simple as that. Anything less than 100% is taking from the rest of the Shire. It means that investment into agricultural initiatives, it means that investment into roads, it means that investment into childcare centres has to help co-fund, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. And this is what the federal government and the state government consistently do wrong with forcing population growth onto local communities. They do not, they structurally underfund it. And again, we've got another master plan here which cannot tell us what percentage of that master plan's ambition will be funded by that development infrastructure levy and that community infrastructure levy. So I don't support it. We should not be putting forward master plans without clear transparency at just how much we are structurally underfunded by the feds, the state and the developers, because the rest of us carry the can.
Thank you, Councillor Nicol. Do I have any other speakers to this item? I will just put in my 2 cents worth. I agree that we do definitely struggle with having a lot of these master plans on our decks, and that circumstances changes, and we're often a lot of staff resources going into, constant review, and maybe there needs to be a little bit of a better way that we can do it. In the case of my ward, I have one, the PB Ronald master plan, which again has a lot of pressures on it from groups wanting things that they've had on that drawing board for some time. And in that case, we've got reserve money, and whether that could be used from when developers subdivide units and so on. So there's still capacity for us to improve some of our processes, I think, to get these master plans happening a little bit more. I will be supporting the item. The work's now being done, and yeah, that's my piece. I'd go back to Councillor Potter, if you'd like to sum up.
Thank you, Deputy. In summing up, with full respect to all of my colleagues, we had the chance to discuss why we'd update the plan before it went to community consultation. I also advocate for our food bowl and food security. We were talking about it today even. It is not forgotten. And I would love to see all the bits of the jigsaw puzzle come together all at once. But the DCP is controlled by state. It's not control of this council. For example, even our PSP and officer calls for many things we don't have a budget for, which I know intimately. But bit by bit, we put it all together. And we are a team. We are a whole Shire. We're not just little wards on our own. Also, mental health and wellness is extremely important, and so is physical health and wellness. And going into recreational parks as visitors and as families is part of life. It's part of our way of life, and it's got to be supported. As Councillor Ross said, if we don't have a master plan, we won't get money for it. But let's not put the cart before the horse. Just because the plan is ready, doesn't mean it will be built overnight. But we have to be ready before it can even be thought of to be built. It's one step at a time, one piece of jigsaw at a time. Obviously, we have to do it fiscally responsibly and be really conscious of our budgets. But it's good to be ready and to take our time, to think of the timeline. Fluidity is important. O'Neill Road Recreation Reserve is Beaconsfield's, supports around 7,000 plus residents in Officer and Beaconsfield and beyond. Plus, obviously, we are a growth area, so clearly there will be more neighbours coming to enjoy it too. Council approved the master plan to be sent to community consultation, and after a thorough 2-stage consultation with community, the revised master plan has been finalised. It doesn't mean it's going to be built overnight. It includes upgrades like more seating and picnic tables, plus recreation options. This plan will guide future improvements to help council advocate for funding. While the full implementation is estimated at over $5 million, there's no set timeline, and works will happen alongside asset renewal and be considered in council's capital works program and annual budgets. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare the item carried. Agenda item 7.4.1. Award contract CT 000093 Coorab Netball Courts reconstruction. That Council 1, award the contract for the Coorab Netball Courts redevelopment to Idwala Pty Ltd for $902,207.60. 2, approves the use of any contingency items as outlined in the confidential attachment 1 for the delivery of this contract should they arise throughout the course of the contract. 3, delegates CEO to have the authority to approve up to 10% variation on the total contract value as declared in the recommendation. Do I have a mover for this item? Do I have a mover for this item? Councillor Payton.
I move the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder for this item? Councillor Pomeroy. Councillor Payton, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Pomeroy, for seconding. I begrudgingly want to speak in support of awarding this contract tonight because this project has been a long time coming. I've gone back through the records, and as far back as 2019, the Kooyurup netball courts were listed on Council's major projects report with construction expected that year. In 2021, Netball Victoria raised serious safety concerns about the courts and recommended repairs. Since then, the club has been patiently waiting for action. They've continued to play on courts that don't meet competition standards and pose risks to players. On a weekly basis, during the season, they have to stall play until the umpire rules the court playable. This has upset a number of visiting clubs and means that finals games cannot be played at Kooyurup. In July last year, a motion to fund the courts was voted down by the previous council. But in June this year, as part of adopting the 24-25 budget, council agreed to support refurbishment and lighting replacement, subject to external funding and landowner permissions. That commitment was clear. Once those conditions were met, we would move forward. Those conditions have now been satisfied. The officer's report confirms external funding is secured, including $275,000 from state government and $20,000 from the club. Council has allocated $825,000 in the 25-26 budget, bringing the total project budgeted to $1.12 million. Importantly, the officer's recommendation tonight is to award the contract for redevelopment of the Kooyurup netball courts to Adwala Proprietary Limited for, as our Deputy Mayor said, $902,207.60. This recommendation follows a competitive tender process and ensures the project can be delivered to the required standards and within the available budget. So I'll just note that it is, those quotations have come in, $200,000 or $300,000 under what we had originally budgeted for, which is good. I know some councillors, or a lot of us, have concerns about the significant cost and the fact that this is on land that we don't own. I share those concerns, but the reality is this project has been in the pipeline for years. Designs have been drawn up, commitments made, and the community has been waiting since 2019 at least. At this point, pulling back would damage trust and waste investment already made in planning and leave the community stranded for play options. Netball is very important to the Kooyurup community. Like many small rural towns, without the variety of options available to more populated localities. Despite the huge ask, a budget has been created, a motion passed at our June meeting to proceed, with funding subject to a couple of conditions. Should this contract not be awarded tonight, the fallout will mean that construction, if it continues at all, will be delayed until late in 26, which will probably mean no play on the Kooyurup courts throughout the winter season for 26. That would be quite devastating for the club's committee and the wider community to contemplate. This isn't just about courts, it's about fairness, safety and honouring commitments. The Kooyurup Netball Club is a small rural club, but it plays a big role in community wellbeing. I urge councillors to support the officer's recommendation and award the contract so this project can finally move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payton. I'll move to your seconder, Councillor Pomeroy.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Can I just ask a point of order? I'm just seeking some advice from governance. Obviously, in our recommendation one, it's that we award the contract, but then in both the executive summary, it's subject to confirmation of external funding. In the background, it's funding is expected imminently. Trudy's, Councillor Payton's just spoken to, we have funding. Can anyone clarify?
I believe the CEO can clarify.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, yes, we've got a grant agreement ready to sign from the state government.
Thank you. I am in support of this, and the key reasons are small towns, community connection, these are vital. We don't have hills hubs. We don't have after school activities in a lot of these regions. Your netball courts become your community hub. Players that don't play, players that do play, generational families, and kids are raised around these courts. I do employ our council officers and anyone involved in the construction of community assets and recreation. We know we need to find a better way, or we won't be able to provide community recreation facilities. And our towns and our communities will be incredibly poorer for it. So I agree that this one is well down, and I will be supporting it, but it's not sustainable. $500,000 for a netball court. But I just fear that they're going to come back in the future, and we're going to have clubs that can't play each winter. So that's where we're at, but I will be supporting this one tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Pomeroy. Do I have any other speakers to this item? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. As Councillor Payton pointed out, back in 2019, the issue was raised. In 2021, Netball Victoria raised the urgency of the project needed to be done to fix those netball courts. Back in 2022-2023, our council promised the club and put it in the budget that they would be built and done. And then in 2023-2024, it was taken out of the budget, which was terrible for the club because the courts were deteriorating even further. Notice of motion was put up on the 15th of the 7th, 2024. Notice of motion 1100 by Councillor Cameron to have this put back into the budget to build the courts back then, because these people had been promised them. It had been taken out. They were devastated. They knew timeline was running out to be able to play on these courts. And the vote went down 6-3 that we didn't, the council didn't support it going back into the budget at that period of time. It was terrible. The council of the day, in hindsight, has failed the Kuwiop Netball Club and let them down. By allowing this item to drift on further and further, it's costing us more money than what it would have cost us way back then. And possibly they're looking at maybe missing a season of netball because they just can't play on them anymore. It's going to cost roughly 1.1 million, possibly council $900,000, $20,000 put in by the club, which is no mean feat because small not-for-profits to find $20,000 is a lot of money to find. That's 20,000 sausages to sell at least. I must say I'm going to support 100% like I did back when Councillor Cameron tried to get this put back on the budget to make sure that this is done. It needs to be done. We need to fix what we didn't do back then and make sure that these people have got a place to play their netball, and hopefully they don't miss out on a season. So I'll be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Do I have any other speakers to this motion? Councillor Thompson to begin with.
Thank you, Deputy. Yeah, just echoing probably a few of the thoughts that have currently gone around the room. It's worth noting the total contract limit of 992,000 plus project management costs, but obviously with the 275,000 of state funding, as well as the 20,000 by the club, ideally the council will only be out of pocket $600,000 or just over. So not as scary as the 1.1 that is necessarily, the face value of the report that is ahead. I will be supporting this, and it comes back down to echoing Councillor Pomeroy's comments around being able to provide these kind of recreational facilities for small towns where it is crucial. The same argument I made with Cardinia Life, the same argument here, where this is vital to communities for people to get out, to socialise, to get fit, to be active, to be involved in their community. Sporting clubs, especially in rural towns, within the Shire, urban or further. These sporting clubs are a really, really important hub and place for people to get together, to be involved, and to have a real sense of purpose and belonging. It is probably a bit different to say extra problems we have within the Shire around, say, the example of sporting pavilions, whereas that isn't the difference between whether people get to play on a Saturday or not. There are plenty of conversations that we need to have as a council around what we look at with recreation spaces, and I guess the necessity and the needs and how we prioritise certain projects and certain clubs and things like that. Some hard conversations to have, but the nature of this one being the courts are unusable and unplayable and unsafe, combined with the fact that this is a project that has been promised and delivered by a previous council, I'll be in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Potter.
Hey, thank you, Deputy. I've deliberated over this one, but I come back to my core beliefs that I believe that women and girls in sport and participation has got to be promoted, and we are a sporting nation. Maybe the next Australian diamond is hiding in Kuwirrub, who knows? So I agree with all my fellow councillors that it is so important that we find a new way to do this, because this is not sustainable. We talk a lot about fiscal responsibility. We're going to have to make some very hard choices. And I think we need to discuss future expectations for this type of upgrade. We need to revise the whole process. So I look forward to talking about that in 26. But I understand how important netball is to young women and girls. I used to play myself, and it has so many benefits: socially, community well-being, connections, the hub, as you said, Alana. It is so important. It is the heart, probably, of that community, and these girls, it would mean everything to them. And I would like to see it continue. And as I said, sport and girls in sport, girls and women in sport and participation is something that's very, very close to my heart. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. I'm just going to add that I will be, oh, sorry, Councillor Nicol, sorry, I didn't see you. Please speak.
Thank you, Deputy. I promise it's not because I'm crook, but I'm going to be the Grinch on this one too. Sorry. I cannot have my name recorded on handing out this much public money on 2 netball courts, so I don't want to be on the record as supporting it. I agree with all the councillors' statements about the importance of community sport for children to develop and grow, and for young adults to learn the value of community and see firsthand volunteering in action. But enough is enough. I just came out of a meeting last Thursday where I looked the representatives of the Emerald Football and Netball Club in the eye, and they had 400K of funding they'd managed to win from the feds, and we've been stringing them out asking for extra engineering in their proposed build, so that the cost of the project has grown on them. And they've been told we don't have the money to chip in much extra. They have to pare back the scope of their project to make it fit. So we have crazy, contradicting messages going out to different clubs in different places. Some will bend over backwards and tip 800 grand into, when the state won't even meet us halfway. 275 is what the state's prepared to tip in. And we'll drop everything and do 800. And then I'm talking to another club up the hill, and we might tip in a few grand to make up for the extra engineering that we're asking for them. We've got it wrong. We need to go right back to the drawing board before next year's budget is established, and we've got to work out what we're doing on sporting clubs, and as a proportion of our total spend, how much are they taking compared to other initiatives? 800 grand is a road, a whole residential road, and those residents will tip in probably 200K out of their own pocket to make it happen. So they don't have to breathe dust all day long. They don't have to keep their windows and doors shut all day and all night, all through summer. I just think our priorities are all wrong. I'm sorry for speaking emotively, but those residents on that road have been waiting 40 years, not 4, for a bloody netball court that they can play games on. They've been waiting 40 years in the dust. So I apologise for the emotion. I'm not putting my name to this one.
Thank you, Councillor Nicol. Any other councillors to speak? Councillor Kowalczyk?
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Mayor. I'm going to be supporting this. I want to say well done to the club for their advocacy, the president, the committee, all the members who fought tooth and nail, as Councillor Ross said, to make sure that this got back on council's radar. And I'm pleased that you acknowledge former Councillor Kay Cameron. I also want to acknowledge now Councillor Payton and Councillor Pomeroy for their efforts in bringing this back to life. I also do want to say well done to Jordan Crinali in getting state support to enable this, because I know for her that wasn't easy. And I think it's interesting, Councillor Nicol, I mean, you do raise a good point. I don't think necessarily, though, you're comparing apples and apples with Emerald and Kooyrup, because, of course, across the road at Pepe's Land, there's many netball courts that the Emerald Netball Club can play on, whereas for Kooyrup, this is their surface. If it does not exist, the Kooyrup Netball Club does not exist. So I think, you know, to conflate the broader issue of how much we spend on recreation reserves more broadly, I think that's a conversation we do need to have, and that's a reasonable point you've raised. And I'm actually in support of you there in terms of the challenge of unsealed roads. I think particularly, you know, it's one of those things that either you're the ward councillor of those areas that have so many unsealed roads, or you're potentially in a leadership role at council where you see how damaging that can be for so many of our residents. So not discounting that issue at all, that is significant and serious. But this project in particular, long awaited, much deserved, needs to happen.
Thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk. I want to acknowledge that the population of Kooyrup is growing. People are now jumping the shark and moving down there out of the growth area because of the affordability of housing. So it is a growing community, and to have a football netball club and not have netball courts just doesn't add up. I recognise the challenge that we have in terms of maybe going back and looking at our policy around our surfaces across the Shire, and with the cost of increasing markedly in providing these, and whether we have to look at other models of delivery. It's quite common to see in places that, particularly in my old home state of WA, where a surface might be marked with various lines for various sports, and not just be a tennis court. It's a tennis court and it's a netball court and it's a this and it's that, and there's one surface. If things get tough, that might be how we work. So I acknowledge Councillor Potter's point regarding women in sport, and the need for the women to be able to play. I know that at the moment a lot of girls from Kooyrup come up to play in the stadium competition during the week as well. I will be supporting this motion. I also want to mention the challenge that we're having with the Crown land and the work that's being done around the Crown land reserves, and we're all looking forward to more progress on that policy in the new year. So I'll just check. Is there anyone else who needs to speak? Sorry, I'm out of kilt.
Can I just have a point of order, please, Deputy Mayor? It was mentioned that there could be a netballer come out of Kooyrup who could play for Australia one day. Janine Illich, who played in the Australian Diamonds netball team, who went to the Commonwealth Games over in Scotland and won a gold medal, came from Kooyrup. And I think she won 2 gold medals at 2 Commonwealth Games, and she was in the starting lineup too. She wasn't a bench player. She was actually in the Australian team. So, and she played locally down here when she wasn't playing for the Melbourne Phoenix or whatever.
That's a point of order. Councillor Ross, not a point of order. Now I'd like to go back to Councillor Payton to sum up, please.
Thank you very much, and it's been really good hearing from all of you and the general support that we have for this item. And Councillor Nicol, I hear you. You know, I share your deep concerns about this, and you know, when you're looking at safety on our roads and the other issues that we have to contend with, compared to playing sport, you know, you understand the depth of your emotion and the conviction that you have to try and address that. So in the background, I've been having a lot of further discussions beyond this, what's written in the report, with our capital projects team, asking them to trim the design and cut the spend wherever possible. And they'll continue working on that throughout the project. So I just want to thank Peter Benezik over there, managing our infrastructure and ensuring that this project doesn't just come in on budget or under budget, but far exceeds our expectations. Thank you. We know we need to find a better way going forward, or we won't be able to keep funding community recreation into the future, as Councillor Pomeroy and a couple of other councillors have said. And following on from Councillor Nicol, you know, not only is this type of funding unsustainable, but it is randomly handed out where some clubs win and some clubs lose. We need to have a policy of funding that is fair and equitable across the Shire and across various codes of sport and even across other hobbies, you know, such as art. A contrast of the high spend, if we're focusing on the high spend of council tipping in 600,000 to 800,000 on this play surface, it pales by comparison to the fancy Rolls-Royce style sports pavilions that are still being funded and built around the Shire. You know, we're saying 600,000 or 800,000 for a play surface basic stuff, compared to, you know, Upper Beaconsfield's about to get a $5 or $6 million pavilion. Cooroorup Bowls Club have just had a $5+ million pavilion put in. We've got Coral Inn that's just had a new pavilion. We've gone on this spending spree, and I'm really pleased to know that this council has stopped that in its tracks. I have to finish. Just one more thing. A point that we can take away from tonight is that a lot of strategic work needs to be done to decide how we fund recreational sports facilities in future.
Thank you, Councillor Payton. I'll now put the item to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Please record that for Councillor Nicol. Declare it carried. Agenda item 7.4.2, Capital Works Report, new capital project. That council approves a $550,000 budget for Brunt Right Side Road intersection preparatory works, and 2, allocates a council funded budget of $550,000 for preparatory works on the Brunt Right Side Road intersection project, including design of Pink Hill Road, noting the expectation that council will be reimbursed these costs upon execution of an external funding agreement. Is there a mover for this item? Councillor Kowalczyk.
I'll move the officer's recommendation.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Ross. Councillor Kowalczyk, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Councillor Ross, for the second. So we're being asked here to fund budget of $550,000 for design and prep works on Brunt Whiteside Road intersection, including the design for the Pink Hill Road extension from the intersection. The Victorian Government announced $15.5 million grant funding for the construction of this intersection. The estimated cost of completion of the project overall is 18.5. So again, recognising that council's contributions to these projects is through developer contributions. It's always interesting to note, and I think particularly in the context of the broader conversation we're having tonight about council expenditure to deliver state government priorities or federal government priorities. And I think this funding might have been announced in the last federal election campaign. I'm not 100% sure on that, but you can be sure that council's contribution will be brought. A large percentage of council's contribution will be coming from developer contributions who have the privilege of building housing in this area. So again, from my perspective, as a councillor for this area, as a local to this area, I think one of the benefits of having growth is getting that upgraded infrastructure majorly funded by developer contributions and also the federal and state governments. And this is an asset which will make the lives of our existing and new residents better, that will require hopefully little contribution. Although that does not take away from the fact that it will be our people who will be designing and doing the work and putting that local touch on it, because something that is well known in government circles, but perhaps not well known more broadly in the community, is that council delivers value for money when compared to state and federal government delivering, because our council officers can get it done at a much better rate. I'll leave it there. Thanks, Deputy.
Thank you, Councillor Kawasi. I'll go to your seconder, Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk, for moving this item. Look, this is one where we put in the money first and then we get the money back. We have had great success at this. We had a pocket of land down on the corner of Bald Hill Road and Cooey-Rupp Road that was basically landlocked. It had no roads on it. No one could afford to pay for it. And it sat there for years and years and years undeveloped. Council put together a package for the landowners that we would stump up the money up front and we would build the roads and they would repay us back. And what that did was that actually released all of that land to build in there now. If you drive through there, it's actually worked out pretty good at the moment, because that's the road that they use while they're rebuilding the corner of that intersection there to divert cars through. So it's actually been used as a through road. But also too, there was so much land in there that just had no roads to it. So you couldn't develop it, you couldn't build it, you couldn't even sell it. So those people were happy to put in the money and then they could sell their blocks. Businesses are now in there. There's people getting jobs in there. So this is one area where I'm sure some of my fellow councillors who like to know that it's not costing us too much. This is where we put it up and we get it back. So it actually doesn't cost us any money at the end of the day. It's just that we put it up at the start and they'll give it back. So I think this is a really good project. It brings things ahead. If we didn't do it in advance, it possibly, if it took longer to do, it would probably cost us even more money. So thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Do I have any other speakers to this item? Councillor Potter.
This is a significant part of the urban growth area's jigsaw puzzle. It's estimated that the intersection likely supports travel for over 29,000 residents, with the potential for further growth. And with around 5 families a day moving into our growth corridor, I think it's imperative that we get ahead of the game with this. And honestly, I'm sure there's more than that coming. Don't forget that the Officers Health Employment Precinct is on its way. There's so many building developments in and around this intersection that it's really exciting. I can't wait to meet all of our new neighbours, but we must get ready. I think safety is paramount here, and this intersection is part of the larger picture for our local area and this region. Obviously there's been other areas in an officer, especially, when they closed Station Street for safety reasons. We now really require a bypass and Officer South Road and pedestrian crossing and, lots of things to take the pressure off. Well, this intersection is part of that bigger picture where it will be taking the pressure off that whole Princess Highway section. So I'm really excited about the idea, and I think a key point is in the reading is that once the funding agreement is finalised, the project, it said it's not expected to require a council contribution. Instead, it would be fully funded by the Road Blitz grant funding and the developer contributions plan, as Councillor Kowalczyk said. So it looks like the risk is really minimal. And yeah, I'm really excited about the development of our local area. So I'm all for this. Thank you.
Thank you to Councillor Potter. Do I have any other speakers to this item? I'll put it to the vote. All those I'll sum up. Sorry. Would Councillor Kovacic like to sum up?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just very briefly, to the residents who use this intersection every day, who live nearby, and of course many of us pass through it, but for those who live in the area, this area has been subject to heavy roadworks pretty recently in the past that experienced significant delays, and there was a large amount of frustration there through those projects. I'm pleased, obviously, that that's passed now, and there has been a period of no works. But it looks like, you know, once these preparatory works are done, they'll be getting back into some more intersection works as Pink Hill Road comes on board and the area develops around then. So I would just ask everyone for patience, but I would also hope that, you know, through the learning experience that we would have seen through the company that previously delivered those water main works, we've learned a lot about where the services are. And we don't anticipate getting tripped up this time. And hopefully this project can go along swimmingly and smoothly. And I'm imagining that's why we're spending so much time doing preparatory work, so that we know where everything is at and we can minimise disruptions, because I acknowledge, and this council knows, that our residents do suffer from significant construction fatigue. It's not all rainbows living in the growth area, but we know that eventually, through laying the foundation of, you know, some of the infrastructure that we need, ultimately it's going to lead to better outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kovacic. Now put item 7.4.2 to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. Agenda item 7.5.1, Community Engagement Update, December 2025 and January 2026. The Council notes the engagement update for December 2025 and 2026. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Thompson.
Move the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Deputy.
Is there a seconder for the item? Councillor Pomeroy. Councillor Casey Thompson to speak.
Thank you, Deputy. Yeah, in full support of this one. Community engagement is such a great tool for us councillors to actually hear from our residents and ratepayers about certain things, projects, initiatives, ideas, issues that are going on within our Shire. As always, I strongly encourage people to head to creating.cardinia.vic.gov.au /projects for a bunch of open community engagement items and projects that are going on right now. One that I particularly want to point to that doesn't seem to be in the report that I can see, but is on the website, is the Shape Our Cultural Future, Have Your Say. So which is talking to the festival and events funding policy, which we've brought up in past council meetings about the need for a more robust and comprehensive kind of review and strategy for that moving forward, as well as the public art policy. And under the why we're consulting things like the types of festivals and events that matter most to our residents, the kind of public art you value, where you'd like to see it, and how council can best support cultural life across our Shire. So please jump on and have a look at that survey. A few of the others that are there are talking about proposal to discontinue sell a laneway in Rosebery Street, Lang Lang, the differential rate review for 2026, which will no doubt be a hot item within our councillor group moving forward. So that one's really important that we get ratepayer feedback for, and the draft initiative for the Reconciliation Action Plan 2026 and 2028. And just quickly, while we are talking through this report, things, what I like at the bottom of this report is probably my favourite thing, is underneath the first table is the table that says previous engagement / inform projects. And it has a couple of items that have been recently decided and discussed at council level. And the column that says how feedback shaped decisions made. So it just goes to show community engagement in practice at work and how it has actually informed decisions and actually helped us provide information where it might be one thing that we get as far as information from an officer's report, but then it's really good to get the on-the-ground feedback about what really matters or the actual issues from everyday people. So I'll open the floor to other colleagues to speak, but yeah, really happy to move this tab.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I'll move to your seconder, Councillor Pomeroy.
I'd just like to note the community who continually get involved in these things, and we do see sort of engagement ebb and flow depending on the issue, but also the timing as to when it is out and for how long and what engagement and pop-ups that we have. And I do want to thank the team, especially. There's been a number of pop-ups in the last few months and across the year that has really got out into the community and heard one-on-one as well to bring that feedback back. So I think it's an important part of what we do, and great to see the report. But yes, jump on the council website, that creating.cardinia, and you can see not only what's just closed, but also where projects are at, and you can pop your email in so you get updates on the things you're interested in.
Thank you, Councillor Pomeroy. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to this item? Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Deputy. I also want to encourage everyone to get involved. Go to Creating Cardinia website, our socials website, or e-news or media releases. And also look out for our crew in-person engagement pop-ups at community-led events, because we need to hear from you. I always imagine a symbolic extra seat at our council meetings, once where the little gold name signs say our community. And by participating in community engagement, it's an excellent way for us to really get an up-to-date gauge as to how you guys feel and what you think. And as I said, it's not about lauded voices. I always say this. It's about all of us. So quiet voices too. This way, it has an avenue for everyone to equitably get involved. So it's not just about the squeaky wheels, it's about everybody. And there's one point that I wanted to highlight, which was there's one out at the moment. I think the project that is close to my heart, the Cardinia Arts and Cultural Advisory Group I'm on, there's a survey you can help to shape our cultural future and develop the 2 new policies for art, culture and events in our community. So yeah, that would be good if you guys could give feedback on that one and the others that are there too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Do I have any other speakers to this item? No, see no other speakers. I'll return to Councillor Thompson to wrap up.
Thank you, Deputy, and thank you to other councillors. Nothing much further to add, just a quick apology that the item that Councillor Potter did mention did make it onto the report. It was just at the top of the previous page, the Shape Our Cultural Future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I'll now put the item to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. Agenda item 7.5.2, State Projects Yearly Update Report. The Council notes the progress, completed action and future milestones for state projects detailed in this report. Could I have a second of mover? Thank you, Councillor Ross. And
I move that we note this report. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
thank you. And a seconder for the item? Thank you, Councillor Kwasik. Go to our mover.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Look, this is a really important report. It brings up the things on a yearly basis and it updates us on where things are at. I'm only going to highlight one thing in here because there's many things you could highlight, but it takes me back to the project to do with, here we go, the Pakenham Level Crossing Removal Project. Amazing. Back in 2006, 2007, I rang 7,000 residents and asked them what their major issues were. One was rate increases and 2 was the Cooey-Rup and the McGregor Road crossing. It was designed for 750 cars a day and it was taking in about 12,000 cars a day going down there at the time. It should have been rebuilt time and time and time again, but it wasn't. At the time, I campaigned that we do something about it. I think everyone stood down there, opposition people, everyone stood there to get done. The community did to get something done about it. In 2000, it took about 10, I got elected and I said I'd push for it. 2017-18, as the mayor, I actually walked the crossing 3 times, the 3 crossings that were there, with the, at the time, Roads Transport Minister Jacinda Allen. We walked down there, I took them over the Cooey-Rup Road, I took her over the Cardinia Road, and I took her over the McGregor Road crossings. And she acknowledged, by looking at all the cars going through there and the size of the crossing that was there, it was not for purpose. It took years later for a candidate to put up that we have that crossing removed. The Skyrail solution, which is there today, at the time was debated. Some of the community said it'll be an eyesore, it'll look terrible. But what it did do is it allowed you to use the land underneath the area for something more meaningful than just fixing up a crossing and getting rid of it or going under. I think for people who have a look at it today, it is a real testament to Cardinia Shire that we got this. We should have got a new Pakenham station. I think it was when I first got on council, but that got shelved when we got the Cardinia Road station. That's where the money went. It didn't go to Pakenham. But with this development, we got a new station as well. We also got new parking at all those places with the stations, which was excellent as well. And you can see that if you had a picture of what it looked like before, we had truck bodies there, you had motors, you had trolleys, you had rubbish and everything in the middle there. Now it's actually a usable space. People can walk on it, and people don't realise that council actually stuck their neck out to get what you've got there today, because the option was they don't build anything underneath it and we'll maintain it. Or council commits to maintaining it, but they put infrastructure in under there. So we went to the community consultation. We addressed the community about what they would like to have under there. And you have a look at today, and that's what's community input. They spent the money on doing all the development, and we said that we'd maintain it in future. I think it's a really good result, and I wish all our results could be that good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Move to your seconder, Councillor Kwasi.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Mayor. I think Councillor Ross has covered it off well. Yeah, it's interesting reading this report. Obviously, I want to thank the state government who's delivered so many great things through there, particularly Emma Vaughan, our local MP, who's highly effective and fights so hard for us. But more than that, I actually want to thank our team. I want to thank Peter Benezik, Narelle Bullied and her team, Kylie, James Kelly and those people, all the team who work with the state, but also at times fight tooth and nail to ensure that our community gets the best outcomes that we can from these significant investments that are being made into Cardinia Shire, and to ensure that they work on the ground. We know at the moment we're again in a, I mentioned before, that construction fatigue that so many in our community are talking about. Council tries to assist and facilitate and improve those timelines by engaging with those, with the big build people and the different companies who are working on the ground to work out, where through roads can go and to make things a little bit easier for the community. Now, it's hard because state and federal government are higher levels of government than local. We don't always get the final say. But you can rest assured in our community that the people in this team, in the major projects team, who wrote this report do an incredible job of that. And I think probably particularly one of the reasons why I'm so proud of, some of the projects we've seen come out of this is because, I am a kid who grew up in Pakenham and I still live there and will live here for a very long time. And it does frustrate me when people speak disparagingly about Pakenham. And one of the things that I spoke about when I came onto council was how there's a desire for us to aim higher and we deserve that high level of amenity. And so, things like, the look and feel of Pakenham Station or what have you might be, unimportant for some people. But, the fact that Pakenham Station's won several design awards in 2025 is a big deal for us. Or it's a big deal for me, and I think it is a big deal for our town. So, not everything's perfect, and obviously there's been delays with the community hospital and things like that. But I think as we start to see some of those state projects tick off, and we see council's projects such as the revitalisation project get through, I think we're seeing a better and brighter future for Pakenham, and I am incredibly proud of that. So I want to thank those members of the team who directly engage with the state on those. And I would just encourage our community to read the State Projects Update 2025, the attachment to the report, because they're a very humble team. And you won't really know from reading the report the work that they do, because basically it just says monitored and advocated. That's all they put in their report, but they do a fantastic job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk. Do I have any other councillors wishing to speak to this item? Councillor Sam Potter.
Hey, thank you very much, Deputy. I just want to highlight that much of this one is directly linked to our previous advocacy. So that Christmas wish list advocacy priority list of the past, for better or worse. So thanks to our team, as I was going to say Mayor Kowalczyk, Councillor Kowalczyk said, who advocate, and also thank you to the state government for these amazing outcomes. I look forward to our council partnering with state and federal in the future to keep adding to our jigsaw puzzle. From the advocacy team's items that we spoke about earlier, we can see our future unfolding. I think road construction fatigue is only difficult if we don't look at the big picture. It's where we're all headed. When we get what we need and our region grows, it allows us to have pride of place. And I think that's worth thinking about when you're stuck in traffic.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Do I have any other speakers to this item? No. Before I go back to Councillor Ross, I'll just add my own little comments. One of the parts of this is of the state work is the Pakenham Roads upgrade, which the Bald Hill Road roundabout, and that's actually running approximately 9 months ahead of schedule, which is a good thing. Community has endured a couple of months of frustration regarding the closure of access along part of Racecourse Road, and that is nearing the end within days. So it's on track to be open before Christmas. So I thank the community for bearing that. It's tricky because there weren't really a lot of other options that we could do to get people in and out of the town centre, just in terms of the road design that we have. As Pakenham has grown from the main street. The community hospital project is progressing, and we are continuing the advocacy. The team that Councillor Kowalczyk referred to have been advocating hard regarding parking and ensuring that parking is not charged for at the community hospital. And with those two projects moving along, we'll then be able to step into the next, which is fixing up the duplication of McGregor Road. There's money for that project, and that will be the next big step for us. And as Councillor Kowalczyk mentioned, it's hard in a growth area. There's the fatigue, but the end goal is to use the resources that we get through growth area funding and any other sources that we can advocate to try and improve and get high level infrastructure that we need for our growing community. So I'll just pass back to Councillor Ross to sum up.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you other speakers about this. It's a really an exciting part of Cardinia Shire that sometimes we see things that make a really big difference to people's lives. And I just wanted to note the original member for Pakenham, Jordan Crignali, who actually was the one who got the promise to remove those crossings. And towards the end of her term, it was determined they'd be Skyrail, and then Emma Voolan inherited the Skyrail decision. So it was great that Jordan actually got to have this promise come through. Unfortunately, she wasn't the MP to open it at the end of the day, but it was, and I know she was disappointed because she got many things sort of done in Pakenham in particular that we're going to go ahead, and then she moved down to Bass. So anyway, we thank her for her advocacy to try and get this through, and other councillors like Emma opening it, making sure that the Skyrail was done really well. Our council officers, as Councillor Kowalczyk said, have done an exemplary job in this area. Their work behind the scenes is second to none, and they work really, really hard to make sure these projects are as good as what we could possibly get them. Anyway, thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Oh, I declare that carried. We move to councillor reports. So I ask if there's any councillors with a report. Councillor Kowaczyk, would you like to start?
Yeah, I would. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I'm going to speak on the back of your comments to open the meeting on the Bondi shooting and in the strongest possible terms condemn the horrific anti-Semitic terrorist attack that we saw. I also want to commemorate, acknowledge and express my grief for the victims who were celebrating the start of Hanukkah, were there amongst family and friends, and to acknowledge the start of an important religious festival celebrating the triumph of light over darkness. And of course, more broadly, you know, the start of the holiday season for our country. I wanted to say that hatred of this kind cannot stand in this beautiful country. Race-based hatred and faith-based hatred are fundamentally un-Australian and do not represent the values we hold dear. We are a multicultural country and society to our core, and religious freedom underpins that. People should be free to worship safely. And of course, that was not the case yesterday with a catastrophic outcome and a really dark day for our country. Of course, thank you to the emergency services and to the people on the scene. I'm sure we've seen the video by now. Everyday Australians for their heroism and their kindness that's emerged with the reporting on the incident. Outstanding to see those people step up and save others. And I wanted to turn my mind and hopefully our focus, this chamber's focus, on what we can do locally. I saw Lifeblood, the Red Cross team, had put a statement out asking for more donors of type O and specifically O negative blood, as they've had to send a significant supply to Bondi following these attacks. So if you have type O blood in the Cardinia Shire community, O negative blood, please donate now to Red Cross Lifeblood. So we often have the Lifeblood team come to Pakenham, but I think today, if you can donate blood, and I know not everyone can, please look up online where the nearest donation centre is and please donate blood. And of course, there are other ways which you can look up online. So there are actions that we can take locally to help in some way. And the other thing just to call out in a local context as well, I and some other councillors were sent a picture this week of a flyer apparently received in local letterboxes spewing race-based hate and ideology. My understanding is that this was received in other parts of Victoria and Australia too. So I want to say to everyone from a multicultural background who lives in Cardinia Shire, but particularly to our Jewish community members, given the events of yesterday, you are welcome here. You are an intrinsic part of our community and who we are, and we stand with you. Thanks, Deputy.
Thank you, Councillor Kowaczyk. Do I have any other councillors who wish to speak? Councillor Potter.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Thank you very much, Councillor Kowaczyk. I also want to speak about what happened yesterday. It's shocking and heartbreaking, and I utterly condemn this senseless violence, and my heart is with all the families, loved ones, and everyone affected. Violence has no place in our society, full stop. Australia is built on freedom, safety and dignity for all, values we must protect. We are strongest when we choose care over fear and compassion over division. If you come with love and respect in your heart, you are welcome here. That is who we are as Australians. I want to thank the police, paramedics, doctors, nurses and first responders like Mr. Ahmed Al-Ahmed, who we all saw the heroic act of when he single-handedly disarmed one of the gunmen, saving who knows how many other lives. I want to thank them all for their extraordinary courage and humanity. To those who are hurting, you are not alone. To the Jewish community, we stand with you. All Australians stand with you. Please, let's not let these two lost souls' evil acts close your hearts to the beauty of this world and to the amazing people in it. Please be gentle with yourselves, take time to heal and reach out for support if needed, like on Lifeline 131114 or Beyond Blue 1300 224636. Our community is strongest when we stand together. At Cardinia Shire Council, we celebrate the rich multicultural cultures and traditions that make our region vibrant. As we approach the festive season, whether you celebrate Christmas like my family, or Lunar New Year, Yule, Magi, Makar Sakranti, Bodhi Day, or Hanukkah, or any other tradition that I've forgotten or pronounced incorrectly, I apologise. I'm willing to learn. Let's remember this is a time that is about love, care, and kindness. Let's keep building a community where unity shines brighter than division. So I ask you, share a smile, offer respect, and let connection be the gift that we give each other this season. I advocate for Councillor Kowalczyk's call for donation of blood. What a beautiful gift. I will be doing that too. And I'm wishing all of you, all of us, a safe, joyful season and a beautiful start to the new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Any other reports from councillors? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll echo my fellow councillors in speaking about this unspeakable evil. The Bondi Beach massacre. It is not Australian. It is not Australian to bring hate to our country. It does not underline who we are as people. If you look through the Constitution, our Constitution was based on a Christian judo basis. And it represented love, care and hope. That's what it represents. And to bring hate to the point where it overflows to the point where people can't even go to celebrate something on a beach, which is a big religious day for them, and know that they're safe to go there with their families, but only to know when they go there, they've been set up to get executed by people who have hate that much that they'd let it overflow. This is not the place for this hate, Australia. We're not built on that basis, and it doesn't belong here. It doesn't define who we are, and I hope people understand that. It doesn't define who we are as Australians. Unfortunately, in the world, they're going to look at us now as a hateful place that is very unsafe to come to. I hope that our government can get on top of this and make sure that this isn't repeated, because it is absolutely evil and it has no place in Australia. I am so sad for those people who went there thinking they went to Bondi Beach as a safe place to go to. And some tourists actually said, who were only new to Australia, they were just horrified, and it will never leave their minds watching what these people did. It is horrible. It shouldn't happen again. And I hope that we go to every single grounds we can to make sure this sort of hate isn't carried around in Australia. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other councillor reports? Councillor Pomeroy.
I will not speak to those that have perpetrated the violence in this country this weekend, but I do want to recognise each and every person that was in Bondi yesterday, and the hundreds who have gathered tonight in strength right across our country to pay their respects to ordinary Australians who did extraordinary things. There were lifesavers saving people drowning as shots rang out. There were people running across Bondi, letting people into their houses to make sure that they were safe. We shouldn't see this. We saw this not that long ago with Port Arthur, and we were shocked then, and that defined our country. We don't want this here. We will not stand for it. We will not tolerate it, and we will do what is in our power to stamp it out, to say it's not okay. This is not who we are, and we will not accept it.
Thank you, Councillor Pomeroy. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Payton.
Thanks to everyone who's spoken so far. It's a difficult item. On a different but equally sombre note, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the passing of two valued members of Cardinia's southern communities. A celebration of Rex Alexander's life was held in Kooyurup this morning. Rex was a generous and dedicated volunteer and served as secretary of the Kooyurup Bowls Club until his recent passing. Rex was a key advocate for the new Bowls Pavilion and proudly attended its opening earlier this year. Michael Casey, our Manager of Active and Connected Communities, shared some heartfelt words about Rex, describing him as understanding, respectful and community-minded, a man who brought humour and calm to every interaction. Tonight, we also mourn the loss of Ken Mail, past president and charter member of the Rotary Club of Kuirup and Lang Lang. Ken's contribution to his community was immense, and his passing is deeply felt. A celebration of Ken's life will be held tomorrow at the Lang Lang Rec Reserve at midday. On behalf of the Council, we extend our condolences to the families, friends and communities who knew and worked alongside these two outstanding citizens. Wale Rex Alexander and Ken Mail, and thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payton. Have any other councillors wish to speak and give a report? Anyone? Councillor? No? Done? Yeah. Just in summing up, I give my personal condolences to all those who've lost a family member in this massacre at Bondi. I really draw back and encourage us to draw back to what I call the golden rule, and is known as the golden rule within a pluralistic society, and that we treat others as we wish to be treated. It's the core, and I believe that we can do that and use the hope that comes from Hanukkah and that comes from the Christmas which is approaching, to band together firstly as local communities and as a country at this time. Thank you. Next item is presentation of petitions. We have no petitions. 10 is notices of motion. There's one notice of motion for consideration. Notice of motion 1122, Councillor Payton. I request that Councillor Payton, would you like to move your motion?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd like to move the motion.
Would you like to, is there a seconder? Would Councillor, or do I need to read it? Do you need to read it? Oh, is there an amendment? Is that correct?
Yes, there is an amendment.
Okay. So would you like to, would you like to share it have it shared on the screen? Is
Yes,
that correct?
please. Thank you. Apologies in advance for this significantly long motion.
So does she need to read it?
I'll read the entire motion.
Yeah. Oh. So yeah, if you'd like to just read the additional 2 points, please, Councillor Payton, that you're adding.
Thank you. I prefer that anyway. So in addition, as an amendment to what was published in tonight's agenda, I've added 2 points at the end. Point 5 commits to actively monitoring the development of regulations and implementation frameworks associated with the bill over the next 2 years. Point 6 commits to advocate and provide feedback through the Planning Regulations Advisory Committee once the bill is enacted to help shape transparent, well-resourced regulations that reflect community and local government priorities, including transparency and community engagement, protection of environmental and safety considerations, advocacy for local government interests in any future amendments or regulatory instruments, influencing how regulations are structured and resourced, highlighting operational impact on councils, and finally recommending that state government provide supportive funding to ensure councils have capacity to implement permit streaming and other reforms consistently.
Do I have a seconder for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Nicol. Councillor Potter, Councillor Payton, would you like to speak to your motion?
I will, thank you. The Planning Amendment Better Decisions Made Faster Bill 2025 is awaiting approval by the Legislative Council, with some amendments proposed late last week. Once passed, it will progress to royal assent. While some proposed late amendments have addressed key concerns, it's important that we make our position clear and reassure our community that we'll be keeping a close eye on what happens next. When this bill was first introduced, the Municipal Association of Victoria, or the MAV as it's known, was very critical. In its position paper back in November, MAV said the bill put speed ahead of safety, fairness and community trust, and we at Cardinia agree. MAV raised serious concerns, such as there being no mechanism for affordable housing contributions, even where development potential was being significantly increased. Another concern was the loss of Parliament's oversight powers. Those checks and balances that are essential for a democratic process were also flagged. Critically important for Cardinia's emergency management is that environmental and safety protections that were stripped from planning objectives, which is a big issue for flood and fire resilience, and completely ignored the Royal Commission findings from the Black Saturday fires, bushfires in 2009. Other concerns were that there was a reduced public notice and third-party appeal rights, undermining transparency and local input. There was no warning and no meaningful consultation with councils during the design of the bill, and to date no funding has been offered to help councils implement these big changes. I've amended the original notice of motion to include council's commitment to advocate for development of regulations that address the bill's shortcomings via the Planning Regulations Advisory Committee. One of the most significant reforms aimed at tackling Victoria's housing shortage is the introduction of a new head of power for affordable housing contributions. This gives councils and developers a clear mechanism to deliver affordable housing outcomes, and where development potential is increased, a step that could make a real difference for families struggling to find a home. This might also mean the look and feel of our urban corridor changes, with higher density living and perhaps dual-storey accommodation replacing single-storey homes. Some of it won't be pretty, and I'd much rather see this happening in inner suburbs with established infrastructure instead of out here. But it's essential if we're going to respond to the housing crisis. Equally important is the bill's focus on shortening the time required for planning approvals. Faster decisions mean reduced holding costs for developers, which ultimately translates into savings for home buyers. Streamlining these processes is essential if we're serious about addressing the housing crisis and easing cost of living pressures. I do acknowledge, however, the high growth councils like ours, where resources are already stretched, will be really tested under this new legislation. What I'm hoping is that these reforms will drive necessary change in Cardinia's planning scheme. For too long, government overreach and micromanaging have slowed approvals, inflated development costs, and eroded property investment and ownership freedoms. Much of this overreach is unnecessary and has only fed the housing shortage and increased costs. If implemented well, this bill could help restore balance, reduce red tape, and deliver the homes our community desperately needs. Another important safeguard added back into the bill last week is the retention of parliamentary disallowance powers. This means any new regulations made under this legislation can still be reviewed and overturned by Parliament if they go too far or don't serve the public interest. It's a vital check that keeps the process transparent and accountable. It also gives the community a way to have their concerns heard, because if something isn't right, people can raise it with their elected representatives before it becomes law. In short, it stops decisions from being made behind closed doors and keeps democracy in the mix. Finally, a crucial suggested amendment to the bill is the restoration of ecological processes in the planning objectives. This will help bring back some environmental protections. I'll leave it here for other councillors to elaborate or contribute. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payton. Councillor Nicol, a seconder, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would speak in support of the notice of motion as put. I think that in particular the points raised in points 1A to G of Councillor Payton's motion sum up very much where my concern rests with the proposed amendment as put to Parliament at the moment. Most particularly, I consider the local government sector as a key stakeholder that will be potentially in high growth areas such as ours heavily impacted by this, and the impacts on our staff are important. Council should have been more carefully consulted and had prior opportunity to actually feed back to the state what those potential impacts were to ensure that we were properly funded and reimbursed and had the ability to take on and potentially better implement the intent of the amendment. However, this is the course that's been chosen. It's regrettable, and I don't believe that we as a council should be silent about that, hence my support for the notice of motion.
Thank you, Councillor Nicol. Do I have any other speakers? Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Payton, for creating this notice of motion with the amendment in it. I think the devil's in the detail. When you basically read the heading, better decisions made faster, this really flies in the face of good governance. Basically, the heading that we learn over time is that you make better decisions when you're naturally you take your time and you go over those decisions and you really reflect on them. It's what we teach ourselves. Whether you go to anyone who's clever about things, they'll let you know. Consider things, look through them, get them double checked, get other people to have a look at them to see whether or not you're making any mistakes. And basically, we've seen in the past the haste of some federal governments who have made decisions over a 3-year period where they just went bull at a gate. They threw themselves into projects because it was in a real haste to get the job done. And at the back end of it, when the findings were found, what went wrong, they actually discovered if they had taken their time a lot more and considered the things and looked at all the pros and cons of them, those mistakes could have been avoided. With better decisions being made faster, what we're asking for in this notice of motion is that they take consideration in the future and looking into the detail as this gets rolled out on the impacts on residents and councils. And we want them to really have a look at that, not just throw it in there and say, oh, we'll see what happens and the whole lot of it. This actually says that we want more detail about the considerations and the detail and the impacts on councils and residents with this bill that went through. Anyway, I'll be supporting it. I hope my fellow councillors do too. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Are there any other speakers to this item? Councillor Kwasi?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Very briefly, I made the majority of my thoughts known about this last week in the town planning meeting, but just to add to tonight's context, I respect the intent of trying to speed up the planning process that the bill's trying to achieve as a key lever in potentially getting more Australians into homes, which fundamentally we can all agree is a good thing and needs to happen. But I support Councillor Payton's notice of motion, and I think it will be broadly supported by this council for a litany of reasons. Primarily for me, those reasons are we are a growth area council. So by definition, we aren't part of the problem. There are, I'm sure, many councils across Victoria who do need to speed things up, who are perhaps in the NIMBY camp as opposed to the yes in my backyard camp. But when you have 4 to 5 families moving into your shire every day, you are not part of the problem. So I'm not sure how possible this would be, but I think growth area councils should be exempt. And I think when we no longer become a growth area council, then we can look at potentially whether or not this legislation should apply to us. But, you know, of course, our planning, Cardinia Shire's own planning, can be improved, but I would argue that's a resourcing challenge for us as a growth area council, as opposed to a competency challenge or a bureaucratic challenge. It would be a resourcing challenge. So I appreciate that planning approvals need to speed up, and that has been a thorn in the side of many developers and owners. And, you know, primarily I care about people first and foremost who are trying to get into their own home. I fully respect that. But I have to think that by being a growth area council, you aren't part of the problem, or at least aren't at the top of the list of what the problem would be. Yeah, hopefully there's a way for growth area councils to get a carve out. And I think inevitably if they slow down and start to become part of that problem, then yeah, perhaps it could be relooked at. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kwasik. Do I have any other councillors wishing to speak to this item? I'll just briefly speak on it. I will be supporting Councillor Payton's notice of motion. It concerns me the stress that is going to come back on our officers to try and manage these changes in systems that are not set up for the work. I've sat in council offices next to statutory planners and understand the demands of that work and the demands that we're putting on the profession. We're very lucky to have some long-term planners that have been with the Cardinia for a while and have put in a lot of hard work. And when I first moved here, Cardinia was out in the sticks, and it wasn't a place that someone went to build their career, but people have been building their careers in the field of planning here, and they deserve, to have clear guidance from the state and from us as to how they do their jobs. There's a certain irony in it, in that under the Local Government Act, we're required to do so much consultation with our community, and yet a bill's being passed here potentially where there's going to be very little say for people in their local amenity, and it's a significant shift, because people know that if a sign goes out the front that they can ring the council and find out what's happening there, and there's not going to be those signs. So things are just going to happen, and we have a time poor community as it is, without them trying to work out how on earth they might protest. They're not in a position to head up to Spring Street every day to make their point. So I really feel that that we need to continue advocacy in this area. Thank you, Councillor Payton. Would you like to wrap up?
Thank you. Thank you, everyone who's spoken. I especially want to thank Debbie Tyson, our General Manager of Community and Planning Services, and her team for assisting me to prepare this notice of motion. I don't like the way that the bill's come about, but I do think it's necessary. The Planning Amendment Bill will take 2 years to come into effect, and during that time, strong advocacy from us, from the general public, from other agencies will be critical. While some improvements to the bill have been planned, we're still concerned. There's been very little movement on restoring community consultation and VCAT rights. No supportive funding for councils, and a lot of the detail is being left to future regulations. And that's where the new Planning Regulations Advisory Committee comes in. This advisory committee will play a key role in shaping those regulations. It's designed to make the process transparent with open hearings and public submissions, so community voices and expert input can influence outcomes before anything is locked in. For councils, this is our chance to put forward practical solutions, raise concerns about resourcing, and make sure the rules reflect local reality. While the advisory committee can't hand out funding, it can formally report the challenges councils in a growth area face, which strengthens the case for financial support. In short, the advisory committee isn't just a technical body, it's a democratic forum. It brings councils and the public inside the rulemaking process, making sure decisions aren't made behind closed doors. Over the weekend, I was alerted to a significant BAPS Hindu Maha Mandir project that used the government's new development facilitation program to fast-track its application direct to the state government, allowing it to progress in the past 6 months without scrutiny and process from Casey Council or its residents. This project highlights significant risk impacting biodiversity and traffic, proposing a place of worship the
Councillor
size of a
Payton,
West.
start to wind up, please.
I beg your pardon?
Start to wind up, please.
Okay. So it's just an example of what can, occur. In essence, Cardinia will champion local voices and fair, well-resourced planning reforms and is equipping itself to ensure that finding a home for yourself or your family is easier, faster and cheaper in future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payton. I'll now put Councillor Payton's notice of motion to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. Item 11, urgent business. Do we have any urgent business this evening? No. Councillor questions? Do we have any councillor questions this evening? No? No? Okay. No, at the mayoral minute. On a lighter note, I'd like to issue a special thank you to the Pakenham Rotary for brightening up my main street with some Christmas trees this week using some support from a small change grant. I was most appreciative of that. I'd like to thank all of the staff of Cardinia Shire for their work over the last 12 months. And particularly the executive and the support they've given to particularly the new councillors around the table as they've settled in over the last 12 months, bringing us up to speed, and the councillors who've been here for longer for the support they've given to those of us newer to the chamber. We've done some great work in terms of listening to the community's vision to put together our council plan, which we can take forward into the new year as a team. I'd like to thank those who watch us online and those in the chamber who are here for us, and our part of our the check and balance that any type of government needs. And I'd like to wish those who celebrate Christmas a blessed and happy and holy Christmas, and encourage everyone to keep safe over this period, particularly when driving on the roads, and for us to consider those who serve us over this time who don't get their holidays at this time because they're cooking Christmas lunch at a pub for 100 people, or working in a hospital, or out in a fire truck or an ambulance. Thank you. So tonight we have confidential business to move to. So I'll have to move to close the go into closed session. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure. I request a councillor move and second the following motion: that council, pursuant of section 665A and B of the Local Government Act 2020, close the council meeting to the public to consider the following confidential information. 1, agenda item 14.1, acquisition is designated confidential on the grounds that it relates to S31C, land use information, being information that is prematurely released is likely to encourage speculation in land values. And 2, agenda item 14.2, contract variation is designated on the grounds that it relates to S31A, council business information, being information that would prejudice council's position in a commercial negotiations if prematurely released. I'll have someone move the motion to close. Councillor Pomeroy, and I have a seconder. Oh, sorry, Councillor Pomeroy.
Move the motion as noted.
Yeah. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Payton. Thank you. Do you wish to speak?
No, thank you.
Seconder, do you wish to speak? Any other councillors speak? No. So can we now vote to vote on the motion? All those in favour? Oh, that's passed. So that concludes our open section of the meeting tonight. Thank you for your attendance. The next council meeting will be held on the 16th of February at 6 p.m. New time, new year. We will now take a break to clear the gallery and move into the closed meeting. Thank you.